Hailing frequencies open, and welcome to Star Trek Discoverage, the live podcast that boldly goes into excruciating detail about this week's episode of Star Trek Picard. I'm your host, Aaron Coker, a.k.a. Caliban, and first decaf Earl Grey, and now Picard doesn't like sci-fi, hashtag not my Picard. Joining me on the show, as usual, this week is my co-host. She's also the co-host of the Generations Geek podcast, a more or less family-friendly celebration of geekdom. It's Ella Pearson. Ella, welcome back to Discoverage.
Thank you.
How are you this week?
Oh, I'm good. I'm in college.
Yeah, good and in college. Well,
yes.
I guess that's could be bad in college, and that's not good. Well, that's good to hear. Also joining us on the show tonight, she's the co-host of the Just Enough Trope podcast, bringing all the news that's fit to cast in the world of nerdy entertainment. She's a frequent guest on Discoverage and on Enterprising Individuals. It's Mika Hana. Mika, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me back.
Great to have you here. You're the host of another podcast on the Just Enough Trope network called Sailor
That's
Noob.
correct.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it is where I am a super fan of Sailor Noob, and you, Cal, are a noob to the Sailor Moon fandom, and we talk about each episode of Sailor Moon in the original Japanese with English subtitles, and we break it down to things about, like, within the episode that talk about Japanese culture, the fashion, the food, you name it. Something weird is happening, we talk about it. It's a lot of fun. And I think the latest episode, we're up to episode 14 already, which is, I believe, the first appearance of Nephrite.
Nephrite, which, if you were a noob like me, you would have no
Yes.
idea who that is. But since
Right.
I'm the only noob in the world, everybody knows what that is, I'm sure, right?
Okay, well, he's a bad guy, and he's named after a gemstone, like all the bad guys are in the first season of Sailor Moon. So, yes.
I love being on that show because, not just because it really is a great show, a great anime, Sailor Moon, I'm discovering, but also because it's, I know so much about, to toot my own horn, I know so much about different fandoms and stuff, and so being on the show and, like, everything is like a new surprise for me. It's not like, oh yeah, I know about that, and here's this great part I've seen 100 times. Like, every twist and turn is like, wow, I'm learning a lot about this amazing fandom.
Yeah, one thing that I love about Sailor Moon is, like, it's actually really funny. Like, I remember it being funny when I was watching it.
Yeah.
But older me is like, this is still funny. Because, sometimes you go back and you watch TV shows or movies that you, like, loved when you were younger and growing up, and you're like, wow, this has not aged well.
That
But
didn't hold up, yeah.
right, exactly. But I don't think you can say that about Sailor Moon.
Well, I'm loving it so far, and people can check it out by going to, I think it's at noob_sailor on Twitter if they want to know more.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's great to have you on the show. We've seen the second episode of the new CBS All Access Star Trek series, Star Trek Picard. It's an episode tonight called Maps and Legends. And before we start, as always, we're setting a course for the spoiler zone listeners. So be warned, we're glad you've decided to join us. But if you haven't seen the episode, spoilers are incoming. The official synopsis for Maps and Legends is Picard begins investigating the mystery of Daj, as well as what her very existence means to the Federation. Without Starfleet support, Picard is left leaning on others for help, including Dr. Agnes Jurati and an estranged former colleague, Raffi Musiker. Meanwhile, hidden enemies are also interested in where Picard's search for the truth about Daj will lead. This episode was written by Michael Chabon and Akiva Goldsman, who we've talked about them on the show. They're very familiar. And it's also directed by Hanelle M. Culpepper. She also directed the premiere of Picard. The star date for this episode is unknown, although we know that it takes place in both 2399 in the main setting and 2385 in the flashback. There's a few interesting aspects to this episode. This episode features the first appearance of a Starfleet Commodore in the 24th century. Of course, Commodores we've seen in the past would be like Commodore Decker in the Doomsday Machine of TOS. This episode confirms that the events seen in the Children of Mars short trek occurred 14 years earlier in 2385. And, of course, that means that Star Trek Picard occurs in 2399, as we all kind of expected, but, here we are. And, of course, the classic Vasquez rocks appear in this episode at the very end, seen in many other Star Trek episodes, but probably most famously in the TOS episode Arena. I also wanted to say before we get going here that I have been reading the Star Trek Picard Countdown series from IDW, which is written by Mike Johnson and Kirsten Beyer, co-creator of the show, and Ella's sci-fi aunt. And I wanted to say that it's very good. It is set, I think it's set even farther back. I think it's during the Starfleet's attempt to evacuate Romulus, and Picard is out there doing some stuff. And if you want to know the background of the two Romulan characters that kind of work for him on the estate, read that series. I won't reveal anything, but I know people have been curious about why they work for Picard and where they came from. You will find out in that series. It's very good, and it's very well drawn, so you can check it out. What you guys think of this episode? And I'll just say before we get started here, if you guys want to help me figure out what is going on at all, there's a lot happening in this series, in this episode. I'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, it just kind of, well, we start with a flashback, but there's just a lot happening just right from the get-go. I had to kind of watch it, like, stop and, like, rewind and, like,
Yes.
try, like, wait, I missed something. And for whatever reason, the closed captionings weren't working on the TV that I'm watching it on. So I had to guess at people's names and, like...
That's a rough one.
Yeah.
Yeah, because everybody's got, I mean, it's the future. It's hundreds of years in the future, so it's not surprising. But nobody's like Bob Johnson. Everybody's got a weird name, and I'm still trying to sort of collect everybody's names. Yeah. Ella, what'd you think?
I liked it. I think I have like this thing where if something happens in a Star Trek episode and I don't understand a reference, it makes me feel like I just don't know. I've forgotten an episode of Next Gen or something.
Yeah.
And so the mystery left me feeling a little bit frustrated, if I'm going to be honest. But yeah. I think that that maybe is more of a me thing where I'm like assuming that I should know more of what's going on and they want to give us more of a mystery.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I am wondering, just offhand, if, I try to keep enterprising individuals and Discoverage, of listeners, open for listeners of all ages, PG or PG-13. But maybe we just have to go full mature on this, because it seems like Star Trek CBS properties are trying to court an adult audience, especially with all their F words.
Is that what she said? Did she say cheeky fucker?
Well, we're mature
Is
now.
Is that what she said?
We're not on a delay, so yes.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we, yeah.
Yeah, I was very surprised.
This gets Tilly off the hook, though, as being the only R-rated talking character in the franchise. Well, I was interested to see, and I was glad that we saw the attack on Mars. When you set something like that up in a short trek and you talk about it, I think it was pretty clear that we were going to see that, and they were going to pull the trigger on actually seeing that. But it almost raises more questions than it answers. We see the attack, but of course we see the plastic people, as they call them, the synths, which are clearly soon based androids. And when I saw that, I mean, I know we've seen flashes in previews, but when I saw that, it was like a moment. It was like the end of Planet of the Apes. I was like, "You maniacs! You did it!" They always talked for years about breaking Data down or using him to build, as Guinan said, this army of disposable people, and it looks like we pulled the trigger on that one.
Yeah, they did not work on sense of humor at all. I mean, like, Data, like, tried to understand that, but, like, I don't think that, They were just,
They seem a bit lower tier.
Yeah, like, not as, I don't know, as intellectual or as curious, maybe. And, like, just, like, their sense of humor was not, like, upgraded at all, or like no. They didn't learn from previous jokes, or you know what I mean. So they they like knew that they weren't going to get the joke, you know.
Although I'd say the Hard Hat Crew wasn't that wasn't the Comedy Store. Like those jokes were great. I love that they have their future hard hats on, and of course they're eating space pineapples. I have to wonder how many combinations of single letters and single numerals you can get before you run out of significant words. Because you've got B4, we got it, and now you've got F8 of the Furious.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. So we'll have to write a computer program that can run through all the things for us. Well, yeah. So, go ahead. Sorry.
Don't you feel like it'd be better to make a few Datas who are like very smart and whatever, as opposed to a million F8s who can be hacked to then destroy everything and kill everyone and then themselves?
Yeah, we're probably going to get more data, so to speak, about that as the show goes on. I thought it was interesting that, we immediately moved to the present of the show, and we get this huge info dump from our Romulan characters in the Picard household, telling us all about the Tal Shiar and the Zot. Gosh, I'm not going to get it right. Who are the Tal Shiar? They're the boogeymen. And apparently they hate all synthetic life and they hate all AI and are the ones behind the assassination attack on Daj. Which, okay, all right. So I guess we can presume that they are behind the attack on Mars, through the synths. That's what I got out of it.
Really? But do you think, because what's the advantage if all they want to do is, wipe out synths? Like, is Mars the only place where they're using, like, that number of synths like that, do you think?
That's a good question. I don't know. Usually we do speculation at the end, but I'll do a little speculation now. We get a big emphasis on, we've always known that the Romulans have enjoyed their privacy and their secrecy, and that gets hit a couple times in this episode. So I don't know, like, if the fleet yards are building a rescue fleet to rescue, the Romulans and interfere in their society, perhaps they want to, by proxy, destroy that effort by hacking into the synths and destroying the fleet yards and sowing dissension in Starfleet and basically making them give up on the effort. That seems like you're going to have a lot of dead Romulans on your hands, but maybe there's some other part of their plan. Yeah,
well, and also I don't know, I'm sure we'll come to realize the logic of whatever is going on. But like, if I were a person who hated synths, I decided to attack a facility where a lot of synths were working, I would blame it, if I had the technology to hack into them and like make them go crazy, which is, I'm assuming that's what happened. I would blame it on them. I wouldn't also fire with ships. You know what I mean?
Sure. Well, I guess
so I'm curious to see like how connected it is and what the motive is, I guess.
Are they in the ships? Like, do you have 7-Eleven and Johnny Five are up there piloting the ships as well? I didn't. I guess I'm a little confused on like who the attacking force was, just outside of the synths going wild.
Yeah,
I kind of assumed it was the synths, but then it's like, if you want to, did they have them kill like the people who worked there so that people would distrust synths even more? Like, it wasn't just a plot to destroy the synths; it was a plot to destroy the synths, and then everyone who worked there.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I guess if it was a plot to, this is fun. I'm having fun. I guess if it was a plot to just discredit synths, then you have F8, go ham on everybody and leave one, blood-covered person alive as a witness. But they clearly wanted to destroy the crew, and I'm assuming the production capability of the fleet, by destroying the staff and everybody that works there and just going scorched earth on it. That would be my assumption. But I'm not a Romulan.
Yeah, you kind of wonder. Well, then, like, how are you're affecting your own rescue effort? So, does that balance out somehow? Like, do you hate synths that badly?
Wheels that are inside the wheels. Yeah.
Yes.
So we have Picard and his assistant. They find out that they don't know exactly where Daja's sister is, but they know she's off-world. We cut to where she is on the cube, and this is... I know this is supposed to be confusing and intriguing, but this is the part of the show that has gotten a real short shrift as far as I'm concerned. Like, we cut back here, and I have no idea what's going on. We met, sexy Dr. Frankenstein and the twin last week, and now they're immediately in bed, and they're having this conversation literally about secrets. She's like, "Is everything a secret?" And he's like, "Yeah, I can't tell you that." So,
which icky, gross. Sorry.
I got
that scene.
Lounge lizard. Yeah.
Yeah, like I got my skin crawled when they were having that conversation. It was really, really gross.
I was like, oh my God,
hot.
I just.
Romulan hot is like a lower scale. It's like, the numbers. Yeah, it's on a curve. So what we learn at the Cube is that the reclamation effort is apparently reclaiming the people, hopefully, but definitely the technology that they've got from this captured Borg cube, which they are reluctant to call a Borg cube. They call it the artifact. It's not a Borg cube anymore. It's the artifact, which seems like good branding.
Yeah, it's amazing branding.
It's non-threatening branding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's Happy Fun Cube now. Yeah,
right. Exactly.
We cut back to Picard's house, and he's getting his space checkup, I guess. And there's an interesting character here. If I'm correct on the name, it's Dr. Moritz Benayoun, who was the chief medical officer on the Stargazer with Picard way, way back in the day. And he gives him the okay on all the tests except for one. There's an irregularity in the parietal lobe, and nothing comes out definitively in the air, but I think we are meant to assume that perhaps the dreaded Irumodic syndrome has shown its head.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to get out of that, to be perfectly honest. I was like, this is a lot of information, but I don't know what it means. So,
Ella, did you get that impression?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of thought, I was like, okay, this is their, like, I mean, I guess what I thought is, like, they're going to be able to, boot Picard off in one way or the other within a few seasons here, really. Like, I felt like the implication was, like, your days or your years are a little bit more numbered than they already were because you're kind of an old man.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and if you start seeing, like, shabbily dressed people yelling at you in your vineyard, then we know what's going on here, right? Or if you start moving through time, that's
right.
I noticed something in this scene that, like, there are people like or dislike New Trek on CBS for their own reasons, but there is definitely a different visual style, and we got close to a couple lens flares in this episode, but I think I really pinned down what unsettles people about New Trek, and that's like it's two very old men having a conversation with each other about one of those men's health. And there's like, it's like cut. They're just sitting in their lawn chairs and the camera's like panning as they're just sitting and talking. And I'm not like, Hanel Culpepper is a great director, but there's definitely this, I think, effort to inject energy into every setting in these episodes. And I think that makes people uncomfortable compared to just reverse shot while Picard is talking to Data, in his ready room or whatever. Yeah,
there's a certain kind of intensity, I think, that goes with with Star Trek Picard so far. Yeah. And I mean, we already obviously there's some sort of mystery. We want to get to the bottom of the mystery, just like Picard does. But I think there's kind of that uncertainty, the like little bit of anxiety about like what's going to happen next, and is it going to be okay, and is he going to stumble into something he really shouldn't, and that sort of thing.
I think also a lot of people, like, they think of Star Trek as like it's like their escape, right? So they watch an episode and maybe there's some heavy topics in the episode, but at the end you are more or less satisfied, you feel okay. And so then when you go to watch this new series and it's a couple episodes where it's like, oh, it's a little dark, the topics are a little heavy and there's not really a happy ending.
There's a lot of F words. And,
it makes you a little uncomfortable, which is okay, right? Because, you know, like sometimes you don't like to just sit and contemplate how Picard is going to die.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I don't think any of us do, but
No.
Yeah. I just think that a stillness would communicate the same, if not more, than trying to sort of keep the camera moving the whole time. But yeah, I mean, it's not great news, and it's also something that they're going to pocket. We're going to find out more later, probably. After that, Picard goes to Starfleet, and we get a little hit of the TOS theme, which was kind of nice there. And we got these like cool, I guess, like beaming doors. People are coming in and out of these door frames and being, you know, transported from somewhere. But it seems confusing and unsafe. Imagine that you get off the train or the tube somewhere, and you're like, "Is this the right station? Okay, oh, I got to watch out for this person. Am I going left or right?" Just coming out of like this door, and like suddenly there's just like a bunch of other people. It just seems like a recipe for disaster. But I guess it's a neat technology, though.
and it looks great.
It does look great.
It does look great. He goes to the office of, again, I'm just guessing on names, but Admiral Kirsten Clancy. I think I know where she got her first name from. And he is making the case to her about getting a ship. It could be a small ship, a small crew. And you know what? Let me throw in this. You can demote me to captain. You know, I've seen the TOS movies. Come on, it'll be fun. Get out there again, fly around. And she's not having it. She's not excited about that. She doesn't like him poking around. And she was watching Fox News the other night, and she saw him on there yelling about Starfleet and stuff. And so she says a big no for that one.
That was a really bad. I mean, that interview, we knew that did not go well, but that really blew up in his face.
Yeah, it's had continuing repercussions, negative ones at that. And I thought it was interesting because they bring up Bruce Maddox again, and he's bringing this up as like a case here, and she's like, "What are you talking about? Like, we don't know who this guy is. He alive? Who cares?" And I think it's significant that they bring him up again, a character that we don't know if they're going to be on the show or not. And I actually talked to Melinda Snodgrass, the creator and writer of that character and the writer of Measure of a Man, and she was like, "Yeah, that's weird." Like, well, okay, I guess there's no guild check coming your way just yet for this character appearing, but I don't know. If I had to put some money on it, I think that he seems to be very important to this.
Yeah, he does, and he's mentioned a couple of times in the episode by name, and which I'm sure we'll talk about more as we continue to talk about the episode. But yeah, he's definitely a pivotal, important figure in all this.
Yeah, I'd be waiting by the phone if I was that actor. And there's also it turns into something of a philosophical debate about the role of the Federation, because Picard believes that we should have saved the Romulans no matter what. The Admiral seems to believe that really the Federation's it's a utilitarian sort of argument, like they are there to protect the galaxy as a whole, and we can't just go off for these people that we can't necessarily trust. And so it seems to be this repetition of the idea of something is rotten in the state of Starfleet. I mentioned like the Badmirals taking over, but we see that maybe things aren't quite as happy and cheery as we might have left them previously.
Yeah, I think like the Badmirals, I think they deserve the reputation that they've garnered over the years, because it just seems like it's like they're always up to something, and they're sneaky, and they deny people certain things, and they let other people do it. I don't really know what their where their motivation lies, but it's like, how did you get to Admiral if you are this conniving?
Maybe, yeah. Maybe people who don't make it to Admiral are, it's like I say about Janeway. Well-behaved women seldom make Admiral, so maybe you have to think about making those hard decisions. I know I've heard like some fans or some people who are watching the show are distressed that it does seem so negative and kind of nihilistic. And I think, I don't know. Gene Roddenberry created a thing where the future is great and we're going to go other places and see that maybe it's not so great and feel good about how great we have it. And maybe you can take that so far, but of course, over the next 50 years, different shows, tie-in media have all explored the darker side of this utopia that they live in and this military organization that sort of oversees it. And I think that, I don't know, maybe we need to look into that some more.
But also, it's like, I feel like a pillar of Star Trek is like, it is and it isn't a utopia, right? So like in theory in Star Trek, Earth is like this utopia. The point is that, especially in TOS, we've created this amazing future. Yeah. But also it comes with like arguing with yourself about the complexity of morality, like within the Prime Directive.
Yeah.
And the complexities that come with this organization, which is supposed to be exploration science, a helper or whatever, but you also have to act as the military for at least your planet, if not whatever part of the galaxy that you're also protecting. And so, you know, for whatever reason, this Picard and sometimes Disco seems to be hitting people kind of different, but I feel like it's like been a pillar of Star Trek where you're like, you have to question authority, and that authority has to make like very hard decisions.
Yeah.
Like trying to save the Romulans when their sun was going supernova. It's like, do you use all of your resources possible to try and save as many of them as possible? Or do you start to pull back so that you still have resources left to help everyone else that you're already trying to, you know, aid?
Yeah. I mean, it'd be dropping so many names, but I was talking to author David Mack the other day, and we were talking about this. I mean, he's the angel of death, right? Like he's written so many of these tie-in novels that with such dark themes, and he just kept hitting on that idea of what Sisko says, that it's easy to be a saint in paradise, and if you are ensign in Starfleet, or you're a happy Federation person just living on your world and having a good time, you're enjoying the fruits of all these horrible decisions that the people in power or the people who have been given responsibility have to make.
Yeah, like you're gonna be somebody's bad guy. Once you get to be an admiral or whatever, you're gonna be somebody's bad guy either way, because you have to make the decision. It's like, do we pull back and, you know, protect ourselves and however many others, you know? And then it's a utilitarian argument, like you said.
Well, there are some characters in this show who are bad admirals, I think, for just about everybody, and we'll get to that in a little bit. We cut back to the Borg Cube, the Reclamation site, and we hear about the Borg Artifact Research Institute and the workers who are working on this effort to reclaim artifacts. We hear about the XBs, and I don't think we get any more information about that. Dr. Sexy Frankenstein shows up, and he's there to talk to what's Daj's sister's name?
Soji.
Soji, that's it. Yeah, talk to Soji and her new friend, and we get we see them working on these Borg, or these former drones, and they're taking these pieces out, and it seems like the Romulans that are working on them have no real regard for them as people or ex-people, whatever their status is. And we see that Soji feels differently. Soji has empathy for them.
Yeah, I think the Romulan that's working on it calls them the Nameless, or something like that. And she's like, that's exactly hate that term.
But I like that. Like, Nameless is a name. Ooh,
I guess technically that's true.
Yeah. Yes, we see that the doctor, again, I don't know anybody's names, Alison Pill's character.
I think Agnes is her first name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Meets with Picard, and they lament over the fact that not only is it tragic that a young girl died, but she would have been an amazing discovery to talk about. And learn about. But we also learned that Bruce Maddox apparently created Soji's records from scratch. Like, she has been placed in this reclamation place. For what purpose, we know not. And of course, Agnes reiterates that the things get kind of secret planny, she says, with AI researchers. So everybody's got secrets. Everybody's doing it. Picard is desperate for help at this point, and he gets his communicator, and he calls Raffi, which is not the character from The League that I know Mika likes a lot. But turns out to be his former XO. Raffi's actually a character that we see in that comic series as well. And he's going to meet up with her, although the meeting doesn't go well, and we'll see the rest of it in the next episode. We cut back to a new character, a Vulcan Commodore, who I believe is Commodore O, I think is her name.
I did not catch it.
That's what
honestly.
I got from the. That's what I got from the subtitles.
I heard O at some point.
When Lieutenant Rizzo references O, so
yeah,
okay.
She chews out this new evil Lieutenant Rizzo,
yes,
who was behind the assassination of Daj, which was successful, but was kind of a big, just a big pile of nothing there. And so she has to go talk to Dr. Frankenstein, who turns out is her baby brother. So we're getting some of the connections here. And I remarked to Mika earlier that it's a good thing that this is spread out, this pilot, over 3 episodes, because you can't introduce 47 characters in one episode in 1 hour.
Oh my god, I was watching it and I was thinking about the Disco pilot being like, it really took them 2 episodes, and it's taking this 2 episodes to introduce us to what's going on.
They're really jamming it in here. And so O puts everything runs downhill, right? The crap runs downhill. O puts the screws to Rizzo, and then she goes and yells at Dr. Sexy Frankenstein, whose character name is Narek. Yes,
Narek, that's right.
I'll have it all by next week until we get a whole new team of characters. But she tells him...
I cheated. I looked at the cast list, so...
Oh, okay, all right, you're cheating. Great. So she tells him he's got to get on top of this. He says he already is. And we see that there's some kind of evil connection there. Go figure that the Romulan lounge lizard would be a double agent. And I don't know. After that, that's pretty much it for the episode. We see in the flashes of next week that it looks like we'll finally get our little ragtag team together here, and we'll be off to the races. Were you guys satisfied by this episode?
I feel like, like you said, it feels like we're putting a lot of pieces into place so we can actually move on and do stuff. Yeah. Like we're just setting everything up still. So I mean, I thought it was okay, but it was basically an extension of last week, which is totally fine. But not as much action even as last week, I think.
Yeah, definitely not.
I also feel like it's hard to be satisfied when, like, the characters themselves are still figuring stuff out. Like, it's kind of this mystery, right? And so it's like, I'm not as satisfied as, like, I would be, but it's also, like, because I'm not supposed to be. Like, there's cliffhangers, there's questions that need to be answered that the characters have to figure out. Yeah. So, yeah.
I can't wait to see how 7 of 9 fits into all of this, because...
Oh, my God, me too.
And Hugh too, yeah. We know that there will be a second season, and we also know that there won't be a lot of seasons. They've said that they can probably bring this home in like 3 or 4 seasons, but the impression that I get is that we are settling in for the long haul here. In the Tolkien Legendarium, I know Ella's a fan of that. It's like, the first couple chapters, there's not a lot really happening here. But you got to know who Frodo is, and you got to know about Bilbo's ring, and you got to know about Gandalf. And there's just watching this, I'm getting the feeling that they're really laying the groundwork for something while also trying to keep you entertained. And I have to watch these again because it's so dense. Every frame is like there's just something to see in every single minute. I just turned around to get a sip of coffee, and I turned back and I'm like, I know I missed something. So I think that's a good sign. I think that they have really done their homework here, and they're ready to really not just give you a little something and then go, well, what do we do now? I think they really have they're laying in they're setting a big story up here that's gonna play out over hopefully a couple years and seasons here. Yeah,
well, and the fellowship analogy is easy to make even before He showed us that literally like Vulcan Legolas with a sword.
You have my sword.
That's true. That's very true.
And my
Like
bat
similarities were there, literally, and then it's like, and also me, a Vulcan with a samurai sword, maybe a Romulan, I don't know.
And my pinch. Yeah.
I thought it was
anything else?
interesting
Oh,
too
go
that the Commodore O, she like seemed to pause when Admiral Clancy mentioned Bruce Maddox. So just kind of shows that he's onto something there, you know?
Well, and why
Oh.
is she undercover?
Yeah, good question.
Undercover-
Why'd she have, because she's a Romulan, why'd she have her ears rounded? Why's she,
Oh,
you know,
yeah, Rizzo.
what's she doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Star Trek loves reusing ideas, and I feel like maybe somebody just feels like, man, I wish we got to pull the trigger on Savick being Romulan or whatever. So maybe they're just finally getting around to doing that.
Oh, okay. I could see that.
That's what I think.
Also, and Cal, you and I mentioned this too. Like, there's no maps and legends at all in this
Yeah,
episode.
Oh, yeah.
But this is the thing. I looked up maps and legends to see if that was maybe a reference to something else.
Yeah.
Michael Chabon has a book of essays called Maps and Legends.
No.
So it can't be a reference to that, can it?
This is an abuse of power. This is self-promotion.
Right? I just thought that was strange.
It goes all the way to the top.
Anything else anybody wanted to say about the episode before we close it out?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm intrigued.
I'm intrigued too, and I hope it seems like, in the grand tradition of switcheroos or whatever, I hope Daj isn't dead. It seems like there's an opening there. Like she might, because they scanned the area or whatever, and they think that it's maybe the Romulans swept it, but they found no evidence of, her particles or whatever. So I really like the Soji character, and I'd love to have, the two people, the twins. I'd love for them to meet and find out more about these characters.
Well, and I'm interested to see because as far as we know, she's like, quote, unactivated, end quote. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting if she really was created, only 3 years prior, to see her find that out.
And what is the activation? Because if Bruce Maddox, created these twins, did he do it why did he give him mad MMA skills? Like, what was,
well, I think, because with Daj, it was like, it seemed like a switch flipped because she was in like mortal danger.
Yeah.
So
I'll just
I don't know.
download Kung Fu into you, and then that's,
Right.
upload Kung Fu into you. I don't want to get that wrong. Well, I think we did it. I think that's it for this week. Thanks for joining us, listeners. If you like what you hear, there's plenty more discussions just like this on our shows. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at EISTPOD for updates and to get notified when new episodes of both Enterprising Individuals and Discoverage are released. You can tweet to us on the show by using the hashtag Discoverage, or you can email us at eistpod@gmail.com. Also, while you're on the internet, why not head to your listening platform of choice and subscribe to our show feed, give us a rating and a review because it really does help us out. If you want to help the show grow, stop by our Patreon page at patreon.com/EISTpod. And as always, if you like the show, tell a friend. Discoverage will return on February 6th for the third episode of Star Trek Picard, entitled The End is the Beginning. And if there is no Smashing Pumpkins in that episode, I'm going to be very disappointed. We'll be going live once again at 7 p.m. Central, hopefully. So join us then. You can follow us on Twitter or Facebook at EISTpod to get notified when we are live and broadcasting. And in the meantime, you can check out our main show, Enterprising Individuals, at enterprisingindividuals.com. Every Wednesday on the show, I and a guest discuss in excruciating detail a selected episode from a Star Trek series. We also have news from the Trek Sphere and interviews with special guests. Our 5th season premiere is currently available. On it, I talk with comics writer Kevin Church about the TNG episode Captain's Holiday. It's another episode where we see some Picard action out of uniform, so go check that out. Ella, thanks as always for joining me to talk about this episode of Picard. Remind people where they can find you online.
Thank you. We are at generationsgeek.com and generationsgeek on Twitter and Instagram, and everywhere you listen to podcasts.
Awesome. Any Tolkien content coming up?
I don't know about on our show. I did just guest on Keep on Tolkien, which is a local Tolkien podcast. They're amazing. We did. They do these artifacts episodes where they talk about artifacts and Tolkien, and I was just on the Rings one.
Yeah.
Very exciting. Very funny. They're the best. So yeah.
I've been waiting to do a deep dive into their stuff. I know that I've been going down YouTube rabbit holes recently about Tolkien videos and stuff like that.
Oh my God. If you're already doing that, you have to listen to them instead. They're the best.
It's another one of those things. It's like you said at the beginning of the episode where it's like, you know all this Star Trek, you've seen all these episodes, you know this and that, but it's just so much to like keep in your head. And
yeah.
I'm the same way with the Silmarillion. Like I could read the Silmarillion and be like, oh, I love that. It's so great. And then forget like everything that happened. Like who are the Noldor and what was the thing? So like these little videos, and I'm sure Keep on Tolkien too are good for like refreshers for all that voluminous information.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so entertaining. I really can't recommend them enough. They're fantastic. Yeah. And I was just on the Rings episode.
The Lord of the Rings. Mika, thanks for being on the show too. What's coming up on Just Enough Trope?
Yeah, coming up, we're going to be exploring tropes of overpowered characters. These are characters that are too powerful that break any TV show or film that they're in.
Like
really good. Yes, exactly.
You can't recycle to the extreme. That's too much.
Another really good example would be Superman. And I know that you and I have talked about before on the Justice League cartoon show, at least in the early seasons, they had to have something wrong with Superman. Otherwise, he would just solve the episode in like 5 minutes and there would be no show.
Superman's got jury duty, everybody. He can't.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. All right, well, that's great. Listeners, check that out. And that is it for us. Thanks for listening. And this is Aaron signing off for Ella and Mika saying, live long and prosper.